Okay, we slowed down. We can start,
Your
Doctor.
body's strong.
Welcome, welcome. Oops. Ah, don't look. It wasn't at the beginning. Oh, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, there we go. Before we really begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm sitting on Bay Miwok land, and no matter where you join us today, you're sitting on stolen land that was built on a legacy of stolen labor. And then next, I'd like to ground us in a bit of joy and why we are here today. So just take a moment, a brief moment, and think of a child in your mind that brings a smile to your face. If you can't think of anyone, you can look at the one in the middle. That's mine 10 years ago when she was very small, or use any of those other faces on this slide. And good evening. My name is Kiyesha Nzewi, and I'm the woman in charge at Black Californians United for Early Care and Education, or Black ECE. A year ago, I could not have imagined that we'd be in the position to share time with you all today. A year ago, we didn't have a name or clear vision, but it was exactly nearly a year ago that we decided to make who we are now a reality. Black ECE is an organization that is by and for Black children, Black families, and the Black childcare workforce. In February, we introduced ourselves to you with our 10-point policy framework. We launched our website in June, developed our strategic plan in July, and received our 501c3 nonprofit status in October. We've presented at conferences, convenings, and work groups, and we've had folks wondering how to get involved, how to partner, and how to support. So finally, we can move forward with all of you. When developing our strategic plan, we let go of white supremacist values in every way possible to dream about what California could look like for Black children, families, and the childcare workforce in 2050. Imagine what would need to happen in the next 5 years to bring those dreams to fruition. And finally, define what we will do in the next 24 months to start us off towards those 2050 dreams. In short, we have strategies for changing how Black people are treated in California. While childcare workers in general are dismally paid, Black childcare workers are paid on average 78 cents less than their colleagues. And while the broader issue of pay for the entire field of early care and education needs to be addressed, at Black ECE, we will focus on closing the racial wage gap experienced by Black childcare providers. In our strategic plan, we have prioritized fighting for the elimination of the racial wage gap for Black childcare workforce by providing stipends for California's Black childcare workers to make up that 78-cent per hour wage gap. To do that, we would like to first collect stories from Black childcare workers about their experiences living on the wages they are paid. The stories would be collected by both leaders of Black ECE and current childcare providers. Story collection would serve two distinct purposes. One, to help in our advocacy and present in a legislative briefing to raise the issue among elected and appointed decision makers. The second purpose is to identify and recruit Black childcare workers to become advocates. The legislative briefing will be designed and presented by a few of the emerging leaders. The briefing would culminate in defining our legislative and budget ask to fund ongoing stipends for Black providers to eliminate the racial wage gap. But our work doesn't stop there. We want to recruit and train up to 50 Black childcare providers over the next 2 years to advocate for the elimination of the gap through stipends or any other solution they may develop. Together, we will meet with legislators and the administration to build relationships, because we know this is a long game, and advocate for our cause. We will likely focus on building support among Black caucus members and women's caucus members. We will also support our new advocates in testifying at budget hearings, whether in person or virtually if allowed. We are not naive, though, and know that eliminating the racial wage gap will require patience and willingness to continue our efforts indefinitely. We also know that if we don't raise the issue, it will never be solved. While we may not eliminate the racial wage gap in 1 or even 2 years, we definitely want to eliminate it for the providers we engage over the next 2 years. Their participation would include a monthly stipend that covers the 78-cent wage gap. Now, that's a lot to do in just 2 years, but by then, we expect that Black childcare advocates will be heard and prioritized among lawmakers and other decision makers, and they will be prepared and supported to continue lifting their voices. ECE policymaking and resource allocation have primarily excluded the lived experiences of Black Californians. At Black ECE, we intend to disrupt and abolish over 400 years of purposefully designed, institutionalized racism. Our education system was founded on racial hierarchies and social constructs that underserve and underrepresent people of African descent. Thanks to the trailblazing efforts of now Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, but then Assemblywoman Weber authored AB 1321, establishing the task force to study and develop reparations for African Americans. The task force released its draft report this summer, including policy recommendations to remedy the harms experienced by African Americans due to the everlasting legacy of slavery. You can find links to the report in the chat, and you'll see for yourself that it is quite comprehensive and reflects a year of hearings and contributions of experts on the topic. While comprehensive, there's a clear blind spot in the draft report, as there are no specific recommended policies for California's youngest Black children, their families, or Black childcare providers. In the short term, we will draft a memo of recommendations to submit to the task force, providing policy recommendations to remedy harms experienced by young Black children, their families, and Black childcare workers. Next, we will embark on a long-term campaign to achieve reparations. We plan to develop partnerships with organizations already working in the reparations space and convene a diverse coalition of people and organizations that focus on issues related to young Black children, their families, and caregivers, people who focus on early childhood well-being. Together, we will refine our recommendations and determine our demands based on the coalition's priorities and current landscape, launching a campaign for Black ECE reparations. Now, you've heard a lot from me right now, so I'm really pleased to be joined by co-founder and the woman really in charge of keeping us true to our strategic plan, our Chiefess of Focus, Samantha Thompson, to share the remaining pieces of our strategic plan.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Keisha, for that very pleasant introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight, and I am going to be discussing our fundraising efforts in ways that celebrate Black excellence. So I'm going to be talking about cookouts and family boxes. So at Black ECE, we aim to ensure California's early care and education system is not only culturally responsive, but culturally affirming for Black children, Black families, and Black early educators. While the efforts Keisha just described will help change systems, they will take time to achieve. Our children, our families, and our caregivers, however, cannot wait. We are determined to build community throughout California by creating opportunities for cultural affirmation, political action, and develop ongoing sources of revenue. Ultimately, we want to celebrate the excellence that exists within our culture. And we know that's a lot, but I think you'll enjoy hearing about how we'll make that happen. California has a population of over 2 million Black people, the 5th largest in the nation. But as I'm sure many of you have experienced, we are spread throughout this large state, creating isolating environments for many of our children, families, and caregivers. To alleviate this, we plan to host proverbial and literal cookouts throughout California to bring together Black children, Black families, and the Black childcare workforce for events that center Blackness, foster community, and affirm our culture. We will also use these events to build relationships and partnerships with other Black-centered organizations and individuals and organizations and people who want to support the work of Black Californians United for Early Care and Education. Next, we want families and childcare providers to have easy access to toys, books, and activities that unapologetically affirm Black culture. We are very excited to develop and test next year and launch in February 2024, a yet to be named subscription box that will be curated by Black child development experts to identify and include early learning resources sourced from Black vendors whenever possible. Additionally, the boxes will contain timely informational Black-centered resources as well as a call to action, updates regarding policies, and data and statistics informed by Black-led solutions that impact Black children, families, and communities towards a path of wholeness and prosperity. The subscription boxes will unapologetically center and affirm a Black whole child, whole family, and whole community approach rooted in Black culture, well-being, healing, and thrivance. Boxes will be able to be purchased by family-serving organizations such as family resource centers or child care centers, networks or associations to distribute to their families and their communities, or they can be purchased by individuals. And finally, by 2024, we hope to host an annual fundraising gala or other event that allows us to not only raise funds, but celebrate and acknowledge the joy, brilliance, and creativity of our children and the love, commitment, compassion, and tenacity of the adults who care for them. All of these activities will lay a foundation for relationship building with individuals and organizations who want to engage with and support our organization. But let me be clear, we don't plan on doing things the way that we've been trained to do or are used to doing them. That way doesn't work for Black people. In fact, we are training ourselves to press pause when we get stuck trying to do something traditional, leaning heavily into the white supremacist values we've all been raised to embrace, even unintentionally. We know Black ECE isn't for everyone, and we're committed to not trying to be. We want people to come with us, knowing that some will not. After hearing from us today, we hope that you come with us. Before we let you know how you can support our work, we want to hear from you though. So in the chat, or raise your hand if you'd like to be unmuted to speak, share with us your thoughts, reflections, or questions that you may have about what you've heard today.
And you can raise your hand and you are allowed to unmute yourself now, if you want to talk.
I see a comment here. This is mind blowing and so essential. Woohoo. Thank you, Black ECE, for all you do and mean to us. Thank you, Crystal. Any other comments? I see Joyce Robinson with her hand up.
Okay. Okay, I just have a question in terms of the focus of this. I'm delighted to hear about the workforce because every time that I hear things about the workforce now and how the early childhood workforce has not gotten the value or the attention, and it seems that both statewide and nationally. So I am delighted with that piece, but I'm also very much interested in what your strategic plan will be around Black children, because Black children in the early childhood environment are still being suspended, expelled, receiving inappropriate reactions from staff, both, all staff, including Black educators. So I didn't hear that piece in there, and I wondered if you were going to do something, because this is also a passion of mine, is how we can create the workforce that can respond more positively to Black children and really see their value and worth and excellence.
You know, that is a very important issue that you've raised, Joyce. And I will start the answering off, but I'll turn it over to my co-founders if they'd like to add anything. But as we mentioned, ultimately our focus is we want to first build community. We want the voices of our community to be the ones to help influence and shape policy by sharing their stories. And so, as we mentioned in our strategic plan about bringing together organizations, the Black community, as well as providers, we can begin to address these issues with real qualitative experiences for our advocacy efforts, as Keisha mentioned, in terms of creating some systemic changes through policy, as well as through our advocacy. Anyone else like to add anything?
Yeah, I will just say that we actually, Ms. Robinson, have addressed the expulsion and suspension rates of Black children, particularly Black boys and Black girls. And that issue has been raised in several convenings with whether it's with California Department of Education or even within Child Development Social Services and other convenings. When some of my colleagues shared that they presented at workshops and other convenings, these are one of the issues that are brought up regularly. And there's specific members on our team who actually have addressed the issue as well. And it's something we look forward to continue addressing. And I will also put in our 10-point policy plan in just a bit, or someone from the team will grab it. But just know that some of us have even written articles on it myself related to the issue and what we could do about it. So it's a great point that's being raised.
I'll add that though it is not one of our milestones, what I think the hardest part of our strategic planning process and what we come up with is it's an 18 to 24 month plan, and we couldn't allow ourselves to do everything. But in it, I'm reminded of a question and my response this morning. And I don't remember what the question was, but my response is, and it's related to what you just mentioned, especially around the workforce being able to treat our children well, and even our own Black workforce, is that we want to be very unapologetic in talking about Black children, Black families, Black childcare workers. We want to be unapologetic in naming them, even when that provides discomfort to others. But we, as Sam just mentioned, and right before we started opening up the floor, are also working on decolonizing our own minds, of getting rid of our own white supremacist values as co-founders of Black ECE, and getting rid of our own anti-Blackness. And we don't know how we're going to do that with all of our partners in the field, but we do know that we're starting with ourselves, and if by our own teachings and learnings and how we show up, hope that by sharing that and being that way, that it helps others to do the same. So that is not specific to addressing the suspensions and expulsions of very small little people, Black children. We have though, because there have been recent legislation passed and whatnot, which, well, I can't remember if we existed yet with a name that when we signed on in support, but we did support because, as Dr. Lawanda or Sam mentioned, one of our co-founders was a leader on that issue.
I'm seeing so many wonderful comments in the chat. Does anyone else want to unmute themselves and engage in dialogue with us? All right, well, thank you so much to everyone for your kind words, thoughts, and ideas. And now on to how you can help. You can follow this link or point your camera if you have it handy on your phone at the QR code. You can fill out the brief form to select what interests you in terms of supporting our efforts. You can contribute by subscribing to our mailing list or simply by joining a campaign. There's actually something for everyone. And tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, but you don't have to wait till tomorrow to give to our worthy, newly minted 501c3 organization. Black ECE is in full fundraising mode and would appreciate any amount you can give, especially if you can make it a recurring monthly donation. So please help us launch our subscription boxes, begin hosting the cookouts, and generally get our organization off the ground.
I'm gonna keep it here for a second on the donation part, because I'm really proud that today we've raised about $450 between this morning and this evening. So that's just really exciting to us that people find value in giving whatever amount they can to help support our organization. Before we close, we did, well, I don't know, if you talk to me at all, I promise that we were keeping the brief in briefing. So making sure that this was a brief evening, especially as you all go and enjoy dinner or your families. But I want to recognize all of our co-founders. I'm so glad many of them are here this evening. And I'm just going to say everyone's name, even if you've met some of them. But Dr. Leah Austin, Justin Blakely, Dr. Carla Bryant, Patrick McFarlane, Maeva Mark, Dr. LaWanda Wesley, and Dr. Ashley Williams. We couldn't have gotten this far without them. We also could not have been here today without the support of the organizations we each work for in our day jobs, including the California Child Care Resource and Referral Network, the Child Care Resource Center, EdTrust West, Jumpstart, Cadango, and UC Berkeley Center for the Study of Child Care Employment. And also we're here because of generous funding from First 5 LA, which helped us develop our website, which is blackece.org, and the Heising Simons Foundation, which funded our ability to develop our strategic plan. And I'm really proud to announce that we have received super significant funding from the Tides Foundation in coordination with the Heising Simons Foundation, Tipping Point Community, Blue Shield of California Foundation, and California Community Foundation to support our racial wage gap campaign. And what most of that money is going to is, as I described, filling in that racial wage gap for the childcare provider advocates that we're able to recruit. I think I said everything that I was supposed to say, so let me stop. Wait, hopefully in the, there it is. Hopefully in the chat is the how you give to us. And with that, Dr. Ashley can take us out. But thank you all so much for coming this evening. It's really great to see you all. And it's great to see so many friends here. I really appreciate it. I can't hear it.
Sorry, I was over here just.
I could tell you are jamming, but you're not sharing the sound.
Let me do that.
This one's a good one too.
My apologies.
Oh, also in the chat, did we put our playlist in the chat too?
Yes, and I'll drop it in again.
Okay, good. I love that. Thank you, and my mom.